Welcome to this tutorial on how to create a load balancer using Utho Kubernetes K8s cluster. In this video, we'll walk you through all the steps including accessing your server, setting up the load balancer, and exporting the Kubeconfig file for Kubernetes cluster management. Accessing the server. Before we begin, let's first access the server using SSH. You'll need the IP address and the private key associated with your server. To access the server, open your terminal and use the following command, /root at server IP. Once connected, we'll move on to the next step. If you run into any issues with the SSH connection, make sure that your security groups or firewall settings allow inbound SSH traffic on port 22. You may also need to ensure that your private key has the correct permissions, which can be done using chmod 600/path/to/your/private key pim. Exporting the Kubeconfig file. Now that you're logged into your server, we need to export the Kubeconfig file. This file allows us to interact with the Kubernetes cluster. To export it, run the following command. Export kubeconfig =path/to/kubeconfig YAML. Make sure to replace /path/to/kubeconfig YAML with the correct file path. If you're unsure of the path, you can locate the Kubeconfig file by searching for it in the default directory, typically located in kube/config for most setups. Once the file is correctly exported, you can interact with your Kubernetes cluster using kubectl commands. Setting up the load balancer. Now let's move on to setting up the load balancer. For this example, we will use Utho K8s, but the general steps can be adapted to other Kubernetes setups. First, we need to create a service of type load balancer in Kubernetes. You can do this by running the following command, kubectl expose deployment, your deployment name type, load balancer, name my load balancer. This will expose your deployment and create a load balancer for it. Kubernetes will automatically request a cloud provider to provision an external IP address for your load balancer. You can verify the service by running kubectl get svc. After a few moments, you'll see that the external IP for your load balancer is assigned. Keep in mind that depending on your cloud provider, it may take a few minutes for this external IP to become available. Testing the load balancer. Once the load balancer is created, it's essential to test it. You can test the load balancer by accessing the external IP address that was assigned. Just open your browser and input the IP address to see if the service is running properly. If you've set up a web server or application, you should be able to reach it through the load balancer's IP. If you're still seeing issues, try checking the logs of your pods or the deployment to ensure everything is running smoothly. Troubleshooting tips. If your load balancer is not working as expected, ensure the following. Check if your Kubernetes pods are running correctly using kubectl get pods. Ensure that your firewall or cloud provider security groups allow access to the load balancer's external IP. Verify that the Kubernetes service is correctly set up by running kubectl describe svc my load balancer. If you continue to face issues, don't hesitate to reach out to our support team at support@utho.com. We're here to help. We can assist you with troubleshooting or guide you through additional configuration steps. That's it. You've successfully set up a load balancer for your Utho K8s cluster. For more details on commands and configurations used in this video, you can find them on our GitHub page linked in the description below. This will help you reference the exact commands we used for setting up the load balancer and provide a more detailed step-by-step guide for your convenience. Thanks for watching, and happy Kubernetes!